It's time to get locked in. We're talking Solskjaer. There's a lot of places I could start with this conversation. The video is called The Good, The Bad, The Fugly. So, we're going to start with the good. Alright. This man gave me hope. Now, as bright as my life looks, it was a very distressing time when Jose was in his third season. Let me paint the picture for you. Martial had a baby. Jose called it a crime. Pogba won a World Cup. Jose called it a crime. Jose got my blood boiling that season. Whether it was Ander Herrera at centre-back or McTominay at centre-back, Lukaku came back after being the best striker at the World Cup. And he gave me 6 months of hell. Of hell. Some of the things that happened in that 6-month period. And there were moments of sheer brilliance. The 2 goals Martial scored against Chelsea, I was still celebrating. The comeback win at Juve, I was still celebrating. We were shocking. We were genuinely shocking. We looked mid-table for a lot of that. And the depression of waking up early in the morning to watch us versus Liverpool, for them to score early, for Lingard to score a tap-in and keep a mistake, and me to celebrate like it's a fair score, 1-1. We are nowhere near the teams around us, and it's strange because we were second the season before, and my naive little heart thought we were still the second best team in the league when Liverpool were really, really pushing that boundary. And yeah, I thought it was going to be a journey from second to first. Instead, we moved the other way. In comes Solskjaer amidst all of this. A lot of questions. Who's he going to use? What systems he's going to play? A lot of questions. From that Cardiff game up until that Burnley game, I think it was, we won all our games, I'm fairly sure, until that Burnley game that we drew at home, which was very weird. But there was a 3 or 4 game honeymoon period, I think, and up until we versed Newcastle, where I was so happy with the football, and it was just everything I dreamed of. Pogba playing in a more advanced role. We were free from Jose, and it was a good time in life, you know. That was 18, 19, I'd like to say. Just finished high school. Myself was at indoor cricket when Jose got sacked, and still played well, surprisingly. I just do that from time to time. But yeah, I was just really excited to see where this man could take us, and it was very nice to see the team playing free-flowing United football. And it was a bit of a 4-3-3 with Matic and Herrera, who were also very good in this time. We basically played anyone at centre-back for that first season. We could have put anyone there. We still looked good because we were on the front foot. We kept possession well. We won the ball high up. We pressed. And we were what I thought United at its best should be. That's what we should be in. I know we didn't verse a lot of big teams in the league, but that win against Arsenal, that win against Chelsea, what a honeymoon period, man. It's the stuff like that gets you thinking of league titles, but like that's just, you know, that's being a football fan. You get carried away with things, and for that run to slowly come crashing down, even just in that season. I don't even have to talk about that night in Paris. Okay, I cried. It was a big thing. I'm not talking about Paris. Let's not talk about Paris when we talk about Solskjaer. Paris is Paris. Yeah, it really sort of just came crashing down. We started playing different formations, which I wasn't really against. We ran a diamond at times, we ran 5 at the back at times, and I was really okay with it, but things really came crashing down towards the end of that season when all of a sudden the chance creation was still there, but the finishing was just off, and other games when Pogba wouldn't play, there was no chance creation, and you'd sort of just see us capitulate against teams, and against Everton I think that was clear, just the defensive organisation just wasn't there, and slowly we just unravelled, and those last couple games against Huddersfield and Cardiff, now that for me was just like a really sad point of the season, that game against Barcelona, and I still think about Rashford hitting the bar, man. What could have been, eh? But yeah, it sort of just dwindled towards the end of the season, but you're still hopeful, right, for that next season. And the second season, what an opening day, man. Had all the boys over, of course, as you do in Australia. You have to make a night out of these things because there's no way you're staying up unless you're talking to other people. And yeah, we made a night of it. A few United fans, a few Chelsea fans, and it was beautiful because Chelsea were on the front foot that game, and it was nice to see us just hit them when we wanted to, and another great game. And there's been a lot of great games under Solskjaer, and I'm going to remember a lot of them for a long time, not because they were good, but because I have a great memory, and because they were good, of course. But injuries in that second season, man, really got to us, and you saw him put a lot of faith, I'd say. I'd call it a combination of faith and not getting new men in the squad for that first 6 months, and players like Fred, Pereira were playing a lot of games, and hands up, I wanted Pereira to be given that opportunity because I thought he'd make more of it, but he didn't, and it showed. But players like Martial really shined that season, I'd say, at least. Players that needed to take that step up did, and I know Luke Shaw was still in and out of the squad that season, but whenever he played, I was happy with him. Brandon Williams was emerging as a decent left-back that season. Let's not talk about Brandon Williams anymore. He's not at the level of a Premier League left-back, in my opinion. And the whole squad was just sort of going through this rebuild phase again, and it was nice to see us be able to win in big games whilst also being somewhat competitive. And it did come crashing down because the football we played, I think, for about 2-3 months of that first half of the season was really bad, and it was a lot slower than you saw United when Ollie was an interim manager, and that's one of the big things. The pace sort of drops off, and when you are this fast attacking team that's good with pace, you're almost playing with a shot clock, right? Or like a backcourt sort of 8-second violation rule, and you're just sort of thinking about getting that ball forward and really creating those mismatches, those overloads through pace. And when you slow down the pace because you don't have the players to play a faster tempo, when you're losing the ball, so you're not good at defending either, which was really strange to see. This Ollie team, it's never really been great, I'd say, at defending. It just was not a good sight for Suarez. And yeah, in comes Bruno Fernandes, and look, I know I said I'd do this by the good, the bad, and the fugly, but a linear time explanation of what happens, probably a better way to go, right? Bruno came at a time when we needed all the gods, we needed all the religions. A 2-0 loss at home to Burnley, a 2-2 draw at home to Villa. This is all just at the top of my amazing head. And yeah, it was a really strange time for United where you looked at Solskjaer being pretty vulnerable in that position. And you see now, yeah, you can say Bruno saved his job Ollie's job, but you still have to give Ollie his credit for what happened for those 6 months, because you saw a signing that reinvigorated the dying heartbeat, the fading heartbeat of this United team. And Bruno, single-handedly, I'd say. There were a few changes, of course. Rashford was coming back, Martial was playing well, and there were players in and around emerging like Greenwood. But a lot of the credit goes to Bruno and what he was able to do. He had to be this character, and I think he's the only guy that can be that character that demands the ball so much. And in the absence of Pogba through injury, we'd be lacking a spark, and Bruno was that spark. And we're going to go on and on about Bruno, but he took on Pogba's role in this team and took it to another level, because he is that attacking forward that's going to come in with goals and assists. And Pogba is still that, but in a different way. Okay? There's no need to get into comparing the two impacts. It's irrelevant. We play for the same team. Pogba did a lot of the grind work when we were bad, and just be happy he was here at that time, because it would have been 10 times worse if he wasn't. And yeah, Bruno really changed this team, and that's another part of the good, because he was able to get everyone up and going again, and he brought to United a United mentality of the past, which should never have happened, because how did we let that all unfold to the point where there are no leaders in our dressing room? Very strange situation. But yeah, I guess we're talking about the football side of things, but over this time, up until the halfway point of Ollie's first managerial season in charge, you see 1 year of Solskjaer now. You see 1 year of this guy who's changed the club, but also been somewhat bad at times as well. And you see a good mix of it. A lot of the decisions he made off the pitch, he was able to, of course, keep Pogba. How much of that was him, we'll never know. He was responsible for De Gea being dropped as captain of the squad, which I found really interesting at the time. After that loss to Newcastle, you saw players eased out of the squad, like Delo, like Pereira, like Ashley Young. You saw players come into the squad like Brandon Williams, Gunnar occasionally, I'd say, Tahith Chong every now and then, and of course Mason Greenwood. And the management of Greenwood, we'll just talk about that for a second, was brilliant, because you saw this guy slowly make his stride, slowly improve over time. And although I feel like we might have hit a ceiling in 2021, the groundwork of the past few seasons has been amazing, and it really built a platform that if a certain signing wasn't made this season, you might have seen go in a completely different trajectory, and he might have taken that final step to being a world-class player. And that's the hardest step. That's the hardest step of all. And going into Bruno a little bit more, you saw this guy, Russell Westbrook. No, because this guy is a ball hog. He wants it a lot, and he wants to do everything for his team to score a goal. And now, usually a typical ball hog will just be shooting, right? Like shooting, dribbling, that sort of thing. Bruno will get the ball and attempt a crazy pass. And he's addicted to that. That's his lifestyle. He wants to be the one facilitating a goal. He wants to do anything at all involved in a goal at the highest intensity I've seen from a Premier League player in a while. And this sort of directness, this sort of eagerness, it reflects very easily with the fans. At times, though, it is counterproductive to the team. And you don't see that at the start, because he is the creative outlet. He has to make up for so many other innate flaws in our team. But you see that slowly start to unravel as you bring more quality into the team. whereas you see his usage sort of decrease. And we talked about it with Grealish at the time. Moving to City, he's not going to have the ball as much as he did at Villa, and so he will struggle with that. And as you bring these world-class players back into the fringe now, Rashford comes back from injury, Pogba comes back from injury, Greenwood's getting better, Cristiano Ronaldo's here, all these players start coming back. Bruno's role has now changed, and it's very, very hard for you to have to step into a dressing room, tell everyone, I'm that guy, you get the ball to me and let me cook. It's a bit of what I do in Division 6 of Blacktown Soccer. But what you see now is Bruno have to play this new role where he has to be this team player, and I'm not saying he isn't a team player, but it's going to take him time to adapt to this role, and it's not time that a title ambition side, a winning side, may have the time for. Alright, let's get back to the timeline now. Where were we? Halfway through Ollie's first managerial season. The second half of that season was... Let's just focus on after the lockdown, because you saw Bruno before the lockdown and it was amazing, but after the lockdown, this might have been the most formidable United's been, and easy to say, we were Spurs, there was no other big team, and there was no other traditional top 6 team left on that list. I know we lost to Chelsea in the FA Cup, but just disregarding that, thinking about the league, we were formidable. We weren't undefeated in the league during the lockdown, during the bubble, I guess, and we were very, very, very formidable, because you saw not the prettiest football. At times it usually took us, I'd say, about 10-15 minutes to get into a game, and this is where that whole idea of comeback United, I think, started, where for first 10 minutes of the games we'd not necessarily go down, but we'd look somewhat bad, somewhat sloppy. There'd be a few defensive errors, someone would lose the ball, and all of a sudden we'd have to start defending counter-attacks, which is something we're not good at, by the way, for a team that has a lot of possession nowadays. But yeah, it was one of the most formidable United teams you'll see. NHS Martial, rest in peace. But yeah, you saw Rashford and Shaw combining on the left beautifully. You saw Greenwood starting to shine, scoring almost a goal a game. You saw Pogba and Bruno essentially being able to create with Matic, who has always showed signs of still being that guy, that Nemanja Matic we want him to be, but he'll never be over the course of a 38-game season. But I was really, really impressed with what I saw over that period, just the way we were able to grind out wins, to create goal-scoring chances. It was really good to see. Now, a lot of that season did unravel because there was no trophy, and it's such a fine line with these cup competitions. It can all be decided with the kick of the ball, like you see last year with the Europa League final. It's cup competitions. I don't think they're the best indicator of how your club's playing, because it's essentially just down to one game, and one game can go anyway. And I think the league is your best indicator of how your team played. You play each team twice. There's enough of the sample size. Everything sort of balances out in the end over 38 games. And you don't get that with any other cup competition, especially not the FA Cup. So looking at those runs, and you see Ollie make the decisions to, of course, drop Matic for Fred. And I think that was the main difference between our Europa League side and our Champions League. Forget the Champions League, man. Our Europa League side and the Premier League side in that sort of NHS bubble sort of window. And you see, after the Premier League season, Ollie went with Fred in midfield, and maybe that's just a way because he did trust Fred at the time over the course of that whole season. In the absence of other midfielders, Fred, McTominay, they certainly got a lot of love when they were able to play. More on that later, don't you worry about that. and all of a sudden it doesn't look the same. And when Luke Shaw unfortunately gets injured, I think it was in the 80th minute or the 90th minute against Southampton. That Southampton game killed me, man. But yeah, that Southampton game, he gets injured. We start have to bring back Fosu-Mensah, Brandon Williams, these sort of guys, and they weren't at the level of Luke Shaw, at least not naturally as a left back. But yeah, it was certainly disappointing to see our reliance on penalties, and that's a huge part of Ollie's reign. But you get the penalties, I don't have an issue with it. Is it unsustainable? Possibly, but it's not so much a critique of the penalties, it's a critique of the lack of open play goal scoring opportunities. It's separate conversations. As long as you are still creating open play opportunities, you're not too worried about the whole penalty fiasco, because if we're going to get the penalties, we're going to get the penalties. That's fine. But yeah, it was a really, really sour taste losing in the semi-final, because when Bruno scores that pen against Sevilla in the first half, you're thinking, okay, well, normal business, let's grind this out. Anytime we versus Sevilla, anytime we versus a Spanish team, it's always going to go wrong. But yeah, let's get into the last season now. This season's a roller coaster. There's so much chaos this season in the way that we played, how bad it was, how good it was, and I'm not even talking about a run of games. I'm not even talking about a season. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about 90 minutes. Every 90 minutes was an emotional journey. Okay? The Crystal Palace game, you hyped, new start to the season. Everyone's coming back. We brought Donny van der Beek in. Hindsight. But we brought him in. We brought Cavani, we brought Telles. I know we wanted some more pieces, we wanted some more, maybe a bit of Basmati rice, maybe a bit of Paulo Dybala. There's a lot of names every season, man. Yeah, but you still get hyped, like, no matter what happens. No, we can sign no one and I'll still... that game goes to shit and you sort of think, okay, second game of the season, surely we can get a win here. Brighton, okay, we're down. Okay, bit concerning, they equalised, okay. And then a penalty after the final whistle. And we tuck it away and I'm still sitting here thinking, oh yeah, we're good. Hopefully normal service resumes next week, and then the Spurs game happens, and the Spurs game really happened, didn't it? This is all off the top of my head, man. I remember too much of this run, man. I've been locked in a room for the past year and a half, 2 years during this lockdown, alone with my thoughts. It's borderline therapeutic to even get these emotions out of me. And the nature of this whole season, I'm just going to sum it up. It was so bad, but so good, but so bad, but so good. It's dangerous how good we look when we want to be, not when we need to be. No. We need to be good every day. Because the ambition of this club is to win the title. So you need to be good every day. But if you are only good occasionally, if you're only good every now and then, you're not serious. If you're only good for 45 minutes of a game, if your only consistency is inconsistency, it is shocking. And, I honestly think all I would tell the United players, and I'm not a coach, I try Division 6 Blacktown soccer. It's a huge gold mine for talent. But I just tell these guys, play with a shot clock in your heads. You look so good when you're moving the ball fast. Why let the ball rest? Why slow down the game when you are a fast break transition team, and of course you're going to slow down naturally against the low block, but why does it have to be so pedantic at times? Europa League final, Bailly to Lindelof, Lindelof to Bailly, Bailly to Lindelof. Get a grip. Every time Wan-Bissaka gets the ball, he's running in a tunnel and running back. How many times have I seen Mason Greenwood have to sprint back with the ball? You know that sprint I'm talking about. When he has to sprint back or sprint sideways because Wan-Bissaka's got trapped. How many times do we have to rely on Luke Shaw bullying his man to get the ball forward? Oh, and if it's not a Luke Shaw bully ball, or if it's not a bad Wan-Bissaka touch, it'll be a Maguire sprint that leaves the whole game open. And this is going to sound really weird, but I've liked Maguire since Hull. We versed Hull 4 times in Jose's first season. I watched 3 of the games. He was very good at getting the ball out, and at that part of my football watching career, anyone who attacked looked good. So just a personal infatuation, attractiveness, desire towards Maguire was set from 2016. I do love that we have a centre-back that can drive with the ball, but we are so notoriously bad at defending counter-attacks. Like, for the men we commit, the teams around us, Liverpool, City, they have a formula to at least be able to deal with these situations. Liverpool and City, I think they both give you the wide spaces. They're both comfortable taking you one-on-one in the narrow spaces, and you see at times, City do get counted. Wolves are very good at that. Leeds did it last season. Occasionally they will get counted and they will lose games. But is it a net negative? No, it's a net positive, because they're so good and so organised at winning the ball back, at preventing counter-attacks. You have no idea the things I've seen Virgil van Dijk do for Liverpool. And you can tell me Trent's not a right back. Anytime we face Trent, I'm happy, man. But Trent's there for his offense. It's a modern game, okay? The defenders actually have a bigger role in attack now. Goalkeepers have a bigger role in attack than they do in defense. And teams are offense orientated. And the way I see United in that season, the offense was spectacular but so whimsical at times. There's no coordination at times, and while we're getting into all of this, I still have to talk about McFred. Before we do that, let's just go through some of the good things this season. Bruno was able to maintain his output, which is very surprising considering all the players that are back and playing. And I know your output's still going to be good if you're playing with good players, but Rashford, Cavani, Sancho, Rashford, Cavani, Greenwood, I think they all had good seasons. At times they were pretty bad. I know Rashford got a lot of goals and assists, and he was very good at times, but there are times, because he is a dribble-heavy tendency player, it looks shocking, and Bruno's risk aversion is one of a crackhead, and Greenwood was in and out of the squad. Obviously some issues off the pitch, like every teenager will inevitably get themselves into in this modern era. And the signing of Cavani was very strange, because it took him a while to sort of warm up to the Premier League. I felt the first couple of games, I think, was against Arsenal and Chelsea, and it didn't look too cute. But once he did sink in with the team, he was this goal scorer that the team needed, I guess. I don't feel the way about Cavani that a lot of United fans feel. I just don't know how he fits in with what we were trying to do, and he doesn't really fit in with the profile of the squad we're trying to build. And a lot of these signings, hindsight's great. Hindsight is great. Just shows me how dumb I was, or how gullible I was, actually. I do genuinely think the shot clock in training would help. Like, if Carrick was just there on the sideline screaming 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 every time Maguire got the ball. I think it would simplify their role as defenders in possession. They'd just make decisions quicker. And if you're going to be bad at breaking down low blocks, please try and avoid low blocks, because you can still attack teams in transition when they're leaving a few men up the pitch. It is possible to get these mismatches, to get these overloads, but you can't do it if you're moving the ball as slowly as United are. How Solskjaer loves to have his defenders nice and packed in when we are taking goal kicks, and that's something he brought at United as well, with our defenders essentially just being in the box and we try and pass out. But how many times do we just go into a dark alleyway with that? Ball progression's been a real problem for this United team, and it's been very inconsistent. Like I said, we look amazing at times. The midfield is meant to progress the ball. I don't like our midfield, so let's talk about McFred. It's pretty funny and pretty sad that we went from a midfield of Matic, Pogba and Herrera to a midfield of Fred and McTominay. Now, you might be thinking, what drugs am I taking? What drugs is Ollie taking? To that, let's get into why he wants a McFred, a McMayonnaise. I think I'm ready to talk about it now. I just needed a moment to find some sort of inner sanctum of peace before I do some very unholy things. Now, sure, Matic is older. You don't trust Pogba because he's got COVID and maybe he's not in shape as he was before, and you've lost Herrera. Now, that doesn't explain to me why you've gone to a completely different style of midfield. To understand that, you need to look at what went wrong before the McFred was implemented. Now, I think a huge part of the McFred, we need to look at why he trusts the McFred, why he trusts either of them in general. Go back to the previous season and you'll find it was either McTominay, Fred, Pereira or Lingard, none of which were at the level for United. So regardless of who Ollie picked, I understand the difficulty of that decision when picking your defensive midfielder. And I know Lingard's not a defensive midfielder, but we tried him there. We tried him in a pair of sixes. And yeah, it's the essential problem you have is none of the options are good enough. And that's where you maybe sit here and think, hold on, that's not Ollie's fault. He is not fully responsible for the recruitment. I understand that, but you got Van der Beek, who is another attacking midfielder, by the way. He is an attacking midfielder who can play deeper, but you've been reluctant to try him out because you're not going for this style that you used to with Matic and Herrera. And you've gotten signings at other positions in the squad, and I know you needed Alex Telles at the time. I know you needed a lot of these other guys, but we spent a lot of money on Pelistri, a lot of money on Amad Diallo, and we spent a lot of money on Kawani's wage bill. That leads you to think a midfield signing was not as unrealistic as it seems. And when it comes to Ollie, I think you have to put a little bit of accountability on the manager in terms of the priority list of the team, because it's his decision to go from this offensive system to this more pragmatic system. And playing a McFred where you are bypassing the midfield, because they're not there to create, they're there as destroyers, okay? They're there as destroyers, and they're nowhere near good enough on the ball for me to even comment on their output offensively. And I know you can say, oh, McTominay scores goals. Do you know why he scores goals? Because he played as a 9, he played as a 10, he played as an 8. Okay? He's not good enough in the Premier League as an 8. I'm sorry, there's just not enough versatility to his game. He has a dribble drive. He runs into corridors where he's offside half the time, and as much as he does love running in and popping in with a goal, his offensive positioning is very poor. And defensively, neither of the two are the main guy, and at times it's just like dumb and dumber in terms of defensive positioning. At least with Fred, you get a guy who doesn't hide away from the ball, right? It's funny, like, they have the exact problems that the other one doesn't. Fred's bad on the ball, McTominay doesn't get on the ball enough. Fred loves to get on the ball. Fred's in the right position, can't make the right decision. McTominay can make the right decision, isn't in there enough. But yeah, I do like Fred and McTominay occasionally progressing the ball. It does look cute because they are quite literally our third option at progressing the ball. Usually it's Luke Shaw. I know Fred's a big part of progressing the ball, but that's not who we look to. Usually it's an outlet ball to Pogba or Bruno that will get us up the pitch from a fullback. And it's really strange not using our midfield to move the ball forward. I know fullbacks are a big part of it these days, but we have Wan-Bissaka. Like, would you not want your midfield over Wan-Bissaka progressing the ball? But once again, the players aren't good enough with the ball at their feet, which for footballers is really depressing, because that's the most pure things you can teach when you're young these days. And I see it even just with like the Olyroos at the Olympics, just how comfortable these guys are on the ball. It's a real to what we see with some of these older guys, and I know coaching will change this over the next 10-20 years, where every player already, all the young players, are so much more comfortable with the ball at their feet than before. So yeah, Ollie's decided to live and die by this decision to be more pragmatic, and pragmatism is usually where a United manager meets their expiry date. And for me, I think we could be approaching that. The McFred, I think, I understand the need to be pragmatic, especially after some of those results, but you're not going to lose 6-1 to Spurs if you don't play McFred. You can get around it. There are ways that we could circumvent it. One of those is definitely playing a 3 at the back system, which I think would be much better at dealing with counter-attacks, and we talked about that in the last video, just 3 at the backs in general. But playing 3 at the back would allow you to play maybe a more adventurous midfielder in a midfield 2. Maybe a Paul Pogba and Tchouameni, one might say. Do I think we have the squad to win? Yes. Is Ollie doing enough? He's doing a lot of right things, but a lot of wrong things. And this is just a United discourse at the end of the day. I don't even know where I'm at in the timeline anymore. But let's skip on to this season. We start the season without getting a midfielder. We finally get Jadon Sancho. We get Rafael Varane because he wanted to be, as the story goes, because he wanted to come to the Premier League to Manchester United. And there's a lot of promise because we got Sancho, we got Varane, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, it's time. The rebuild's over. This is the final image, right? This is the final image. And then you play a few games, you look decent, you win a great home game again. But I've been there before, man. We already won that Chelsea game a couple of seasons ago. I'm now aware that the first game of the season is not an accurate representation of the future season's performance. So you go into the second game against Southampton and you sort of start to wonder, oh, okay, we're still getting stuck. We're still getting stuck. We can't move the ball. Some of the same problems as before, one might say. And there's a real sloppiness in Shaw and Maguire at the start of the season that you don't see before. And we're still playing McTominay and Fred, which you know every week for the past 30 or 40 weeks was going to happen, but you sort of wished it wouldn't. And it was almost, the season before, you were always like happy we were playing the cup because I knew Ollie would try and take a bit of a risk, try and rotate his best midfield too, for a Matic, for a Pogba, for a Van de Beek even. But yeah, it was really nice to see us play more adventurous every now and then. But then we signed Ronaldo. In the midst of all of this, Greenwood was emerging out of the cocoon. And we signed Ronaldo. And if you look at the profile of our signings under Ollie, at the start it goes, oh yeah, he ticks a box. Yeah, Bruno. Yeah, I can see where you're going with Bruno. Oh, Dan James, he's young, 15 mil. And he's very raw. Maybe there's some potential there. No one really knows what this kid's about. But it's 15 mil for a bench player. Not losing sleep, not thinking too much, not too worried at the time. I'm so happy this is the first time I've talked about Dan James in this video, man. Yeah, who else came in? Maguire. We needed a centre-back, we got a centre-back, we overpaid, but that's the market. And did we bring anyone else in? Igalo, yeah, not too worried, we needed a striker, got a striker. And Bruno, yeah, box ticker, cool. And then the Cavani signing didn't make sense to me, at least, because I just thought, we're building a squad for 2 years' time. I'm sort of thinking in my head, 2 years down the line, this is the team for a title. Because City is way too strong now, Liverpool's way too strong now, and I know as a manager you have a shorter expiry date these days and you don't get 3-4 seasons to actually build a project unless you show promise, but if you believe that Ollie was showing promise, I thought that's the direction we were heading, maybe like 2022, 2023. That's when you really start having your title ambition, title window. And then we signed Cavani, and I'm sort of thinking, how does this guy fit in? Sure, he helps out, he's an improvement on Igalo, but is this where the money needed to be spent? And then I looked at Ahmad and Pellistri, and Pellistri there wasn't a lot of hype on, he's a very cute fella. And Ahmad there's a lot of hype on, but I don't understand that hype purely out of ignorance. I just don't know where that hype has come from. He's a very good dribbler by all means, and I hope he is going to be that guy, but we spent a lot of money on these guys, and I'm like, sort of just picturing to myself, what was the point of signing Ahmed if we knew we were going to sign Sancho at some point? I don't see it, because we already have Rashford, Greenwood, Martial, all these guys. And you're sort of just thinking, okay, well, we've just got all these attackers now. Oh, our midfield's a problem. And that's the thing with United, we don't plan properly. And I just wished under Ollie we'd plan properly. That's all I really wished. And at the start it looked alright, like with Maguire coming in, with James, and just letting the squad settle, letting Lingard, Martial, Rashford, because those are the guys we trusted, right? I understood that, but I started to less and less understand the decisions we were making in the transfer market. And you look at now bringing in Ronaldo and you're thinking, okay, you bring in a guy because he's available and he's being linked to City, and that's the way I sort of envisioned it. We would never have signed him if he wasn't linked with City. But of course there's a possibility that he was always coming to us and the whole City thing was a farce. But just thinking about that, when you sign Cristiano Ronaldo, your expectation is now to win. It does not matter you're now thinking titles now. There is no long-term planning. This is not a rebuild anymore. You are in the business of winning trophies, or at least you should be. And Ollie now faces a new problem, and it's the problem a lot of managers probably wish they faced. Because let's be honest, a lot of managing is working with teams where you're nowhere near this out of life, and you're nowhere near trophies. And at United, you now have this problem where you're sort of thinking, okay, Ollie's got a few weeks now to really figure this shit out, because the eyes are on him. There is a spotlight at United greater than there has been for about 6-7 years. And I know Jose was here, but Ronaldo draws much more attention, and all of this sort of just pinpoints around Solskjaer, because managers get the blame now. There's accountability on the players game to game, sure, but over a longer period of time, it's always on the manager. And you see him now with Ronaldo still struggle with the fundamentals he was struggling with before. And all of these things are ultimately going to lead to Solskjaer leaving United. And it's going to happen at some point. Whether we win something before then or not, there is definitely a next manager at United at some point. The way I see it going, probably sooner rather than later. But now you have this squad that's in a win-now mentality, but it's sort of in this window of other teams in their win-now mentality as well. And as much as you'd like to say, yeah, I beat the other teams while they were on top as well, the tactical decision would probably be to aim for a title 2 years down the line. And that's not a very United way of thinking, because you should always be in championship mindset, championship mentality. But it's just the way I sort of think things, like, okay, City's going to dip naturally. Every team has a boom, dip, like just basic life cycle of a team. And I just sort of think, as City and Liverpool age, as a few of their players leave, I think there's an opportunity that arises in that 2-3 years down the line. And who's to say? Maybe Ollie does get that opportunity 2-3 years down the line and we win a league. But now that we are in this win-now mentality, you cannot struggle with fundamentals of football. That should not be a thing. You cannot be a pragmatic manager with Cristiano Ronaldo. These things don't work for me. And Ollie is more pragmatic now, more pragmatic than ever, with the way we line up, and just this whole misunderstanding of player tendencies, just defensive positioning. Just sometimes you feel like the players aren't executing what's being coached, and there's times where you think, are they even being coached at all? Because these are fundamental things, just overcrowding areas. And these issues have existed before Solskjaer. All these fundamental things, even just organisation at set pieces, has been very strange at United for a long period of time. I'm sure there's something into the fatigue after Ferguson left. A lot of things have just gone into this disarray. But Solskjaer is meant to be the remedy to that. He was meant to be the cultural reset. And as much as he is a cultural reset, he needs to keep being the tactical reset he was in his honeymoon period. And we haven't seen that in a while. This video has gone on for about 54 minutes of filming. So with that said, I will leave it there. That was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the good, the bad, the fugly. Anyways, this is Lockdown Soccer, the home of happiness and depression. Stay locked in.